Hello everyone, as we already have discussed that React is primarily used for creating components. So now we are going to start creating components, and there are two main ways of creating components. One is using functions and another one is using components. As part of this section, we are going to use the functional way of creating components. So for that, let's go under src, and I'm going to create another folder here, examples, and inside examples I'm going to create another file and I'm going to name it as functional components.tsx. So the reason why we use TSX extension with these TypeScript files is we are going to use HTML element tags. Okay, so if we are not going to use any HTML tags, then we can just use TS extension, that is, for TypeScript. But the moment we are going to use HTML elements like div, HTML tags, and various other HTML tags, so in that case we have to use TSX extension, otherwise it will not work. So let's create a function here, functional component, and I'm adding a parenthesis in this, and in this function I'm going to return something, and what I'm going to return here is a div, and I'm passing a message, hello functional component. Okay, so we are getting a compilation error here, and it says all files must be modules where the _ isolated modules flag is provided. So there are ways to fix this. First is we have to export this, and the moment we added export, we can see now that it is pointing to the div inside this method. Okay, and the way to fix this is we need to add an import statement, import React from React. That's it. So the moment we add this React import, so now we can use our HTML tags, or they are called JSX elements actually, so we can use them in our TSX files. Okay, so we have a very basic functional component function. We are currently exporting it. Okay, and another thing we have to notice is that in order to use this function outside of this TSX file, we have to export this. Okay, now I'm going to use this functional component inside index.tsx. Okay, let's come back to index.tsx, and I'm going to comment this line so that we can keep this file for reference in future. I'm going to put it back, but this time let's go back to the functional component, copy this and paste it here. Okay, and we need to import this as well. I'm going to comment this import app as well, and I'm going to separately add an import statement. This is going to be functional component from. Now we have a path here. Okay, so I'm going to examples and then going for functional components. Okay, and now we are getting a compilation error here, and the reason is, let's go back to this functional component. Okay, and here we have this function. Okay, if we add a default here and go back, so now that is gone. Okay, so any file can have only one default export. Okay, and if we remove this default, still we will be able to use this, and we come back here and we put this functional component inside braces. That's it. Okay, So let's go ahead with what we have now and functional component we have. Now let's start the server. And the server starts. I'm going to close the previous tabs, and here we can see that we have the functional component. Okay, hello functional component, that's exactly what we had added in our function. Return this. Okay, so this is how exactly we can create components using functions. Okay, now this is a very basic piece of code, and we can add more functionality on top of this. Okay, so now we'll see how the reusability comes in. Okay, so inside the same file I'm adding another function, user details. Okay, and I'm returning another element that is going to be a div first. Okay, then we have another div here. This prints user is let's say Bruce. Okay, and the compilation is successful, but it says compiled with warning. User details is defined but never used. Of course we have not used it yet, but we are going to. So now inside this functional component I'm going to pass user details. Okay, so I'm going to remove this text and I'm going to add in the user details as a component. See, so this is how we can have reusability. So instead of having a fixed text, now we are passing another functional component. User details is just like the functional component we have. Okay, let's go back to our browser. I have saved it and it has compiled successfully. See, the user is Bruce. Okay, now we can use this piece of component throughout our application wherever we want. Okay, just see how we can keep reusing this. I'm repeating the same line, and it would print the message twice, since we have used the user details component 2 times in our function. Okay, coming back to our code, little refactor. All right, now we can see that these are fixed components. Okay, so no matter how many times we use these, they would always give us the same output. Now we need something that can be reused with different inputs or different variables. For now we have this field here, or the text here. It says user is Bruce, so I want to use the same function but with different names. Okay, let's have this a little better way. Okay, username, I'm going to create something, or let's go ahead with first name. I'm going to add this as Bruce, and I'm going to copy the line and adding next, changing it to last name, and the last name would be Wayne. I hope you are familiar with this name. Okay, so going back to our page, we are seeing that it is printing 2 times. First name is Bruce, last name is Wayne. Again, first name is Bruce and last name is Wayne. Now we want to be able to pass parameters or arguments so that these fields can be reused with different parameters or different input values. Okay, for that I can add an argument here as params, and I'm passing the type. So this is how we specify type of any data in TypeScript. First we specify the field or the variable name, and a colon, and after that a space, and then what kind of data that is or what kind of field that is, we specify that. In our case, we have used any, so that means it can take any kind of input. All right. Now, in order to properly use this parameter, I'm going to, properly bind it. I'm going to use params dot first name, but this has to come under braces. Okay. I'm going to copy the same piece of code and I'm going to replace over to last name value, and instead of first name I'm going to change it to last name. So how does it work this time? So if we go back to our page, so all the values that we had printed earlier, they are gone, and since we are not passing any argument to this function, okay, and since we don't have any argument or any data available, so React will handle this kind of data as empty. Okay, it will not show undefined. Okay, if we go back to our screen, we can still see that we don't have any data here at all. Okay, so how do you pass the data here? So if we look at this params and how we are going to use this, okay, so it should take an object that should have two values or two fields, first name and last name. Okay, let's go back from where we had called. I'm using the first user details. Okay, and I'm copying the first name field from here. I'm passing here, and then I'm passing the value here as Bruce. Similarly, I'm copying the last name from here and I'm passing the value here as Wayne. Okay, let's go back to our screen. Now see, we have the first name as Bruce and the last name as Wayne. That's exactly how this was expecting data. Now let's do the similar thing to our second component. Okay, instead of the same values, I'm going to change it to Clark Kent. Okay, I hope you are familiar with this name too. Okay, now we come back. We are saying the first name is Clark and the last name is Kent. Okay, so this is how we can reuse the same component with different values or different parameters. Okay, so now this is one way of passing an argument. Okay, so there is another way of passing the argument. Let me show you. I'm going with let Bruce. So this is going to be specific argument for the first component, and I'm passing here a JSON object. Okay, and that JSON object is first name, and the value I'm passing is this. Okay, similarly, I'm passing last name and the value is Wayne. That ends here. Okay, so now we can, instead of sending one by one, we can directly pass it here with braces open and a triple dot and then Bruce. Press save and we have the same value. Okay, now let's understand what exactly happened here. So we are creating a variable here that is a let. Okay, in TypeScript, let means a value of a field that can be modified, and in fact let is not specific to TypeScript. It is also available in JavaScript as well since ES6 version. Okay, so Bruce is a JSON object variable. Okay, it has two fields, first name and last name. Now when we are calling the user detail component, I'm using a spread operator. This is triple dot. this triple dot is a spread operator. Okay, so triple dot is also available in JavaScript since ES6. So this works exactly like the one we are seeing below. Okay, this is how we send a plain or simple kind of variables. Now let's say if we have to send a function. Okay, I'm sending a function here as a an argument clicked. Okay, and it's going to be console.log. Okay, and I'm going to use this here on click. Whenever the user clicks on the first name, I want this console.log to execute. Okay, so the idea is to send a function. All right, so I'm passing on click, and then E stands for event, and then I'm passing params dot clicked. Now clicked is a function, as we already have seen. Okay, and I want to print the same value that I'm getting as argument here. Okay, let's print params dot first name. All right, let's save this and let's go back to our browser and let's open up the console. So we have the console here. I'm clicking on first name. See, it printed. Then I'm click on first name of Clark. Now this gave us an error because in our second component we did not pass the clicked function. Okay, let me clear this up. Let's reload this and we are back. Okay, again click on first name, we have Bruce. Again we click on the first name of Clark, we get the error. Okay, params.clicked is not a function because we haven't passed it as a parameter. All right, let's reload. Okay, so this is all about creating a functional component. Okay, now another thing I would like to cover here is, so far we have used any. Okay, now here we are going to use a TypeScript specific feature, that is type safety. So now I want others or anybody who wants to use this user details component should send specific type of arguments. I want everyone to pass first name and last name as argument, and also I want to make this clicked as optional. Okay, so let's create a type here, user. Okay, and I'm initializing this type with first name as string, last name as string, and clicked, I'm making this as optional. Okay, okay, in our case this takes one argument, that is going to be param, or let's say message, and the type is going to be string. Okay, so we have used a user as a type. So, and then we are going to pass this user as argument for user details. I'm now replacing any with user. Okay, the moment I replaced any with user, immediately TypeScript is complaining. Okay, cannot invoke an object which is possibly undefined. All right, so the reason is So clicked is an optional, and TypeScript knows that there are chances that it might be undefined, or it may have not been passed at all, since that's how we have declared this here. Okay, so how we handle this is going to be simple. So now we check if this is not empty or not undefined, and otherwise I'm just passing an empty string. Okay, let's save this and let's come back to our screen and let's open the console. I'm clearing it. Now I click on first name, we have Bruce. Then I click on first name of Clark. Nothing happens because it is handling it. Then again click on first name, I keep clicking first name and it keeps incrementing the value just before 6. Okay, again I click first name of Clark, nothing happens. Okay, I click on first name of Bruce, it keeps updating, because that's exactly what is happening here. Okay, this is why people prefer using TypeScript. It gives us the compile time errors well in advance, and this helps us a lot when our application grows into a bigger size, when we have lots and lots of code, working together in a bigger application. TypeScript helps us a lot identifying, wherever we have made any mistake, especially the typing mistakes. Okay, and similarly we can pass this function here as well. Okay, clicked. Now here, in order to pass a function, I'm passing this as console.log. Okay, I saved this for the second user details, which is for Clark. Coming back, clearing console, I click on first name of Bruce, I get Bruce. I click first name of Clark, I get Clark. I go back to Bruce, I come back to Clark. So this is how it starts printing now. Okay, now for giving type safety, okay, using type is not the only thing we can use. We can also use interface, iUser, or I'll go with iUser, and I can probably use the same thing here. So they both work the same way. Okay, if we use it like this, come back, first name of Bruce and first name of Clark. Okay, coming back. So this is how we can create functional components. Okay, and also we covered some basic idea on how we can use TypeScript on top of it, especially the TypeScript type safety features. Okay, see you in the next section.